There is a difference between savers and investors. Robert's view. Many people invest in mutual funds. When I talk about not being a saver, many of them respond, "But I am investing. I have a portfolio of mutual funds. I have a 401k. A 401k plan is a retirement savings plan offered by an employer. It allows employees to save a portion of their income for retirement on a tax-deferred basis. Here's an example. Let's say that John is an employee at YZ Corporation. YZ Corporation offers a 401k plan, and John decides to enroll in the plan. He decides to contribute 5% of his $50,000 annual salary, or $2,500 into the 401k plan each year. John can choose from a variety of investment options, such as mutual funds, stocks, and bonds, to build his retirement savings portfolio. At the end of the year, John's contribution of $2,500 is deducted from his salary and invested in the 401k plan. John will not pay taxes on the $2,500 until he withdraws the money in retirement. Over time, John's investment grows as the stock market rises and as his contributions continue to compound. When John reaches retirement age, he can start withdrawing the money from his 401k account. At that time, he will pay taxes on the withdrawals as ordinary income. By enrolling in the 401k plan, John has taken advantage of a convenient and tax-advantaged way to save for his retirement. I also own stocks and bonds. Isn't that investing? I take a step back and explain myself a bit more. Yes, saving is a form of investing. So when you buy mutual funds or stocks or bonds, you are sort of investing, but it is more from a saver's point of view and a saver's set of values. Let's look at the passive investor philosophy. Once again, most financial planners will advise you to work hard, save money, get out of debt, invest for the long term, primarily in mutual funds, diversify. In financial planners' terms, it frequently sounds like this: hard work. Make sure your employer offers a matching 401k plan. We explained that in the previous videos. Make sure to provide as much as possible. It is, after all, tax-free money. If you have a mortgage, pay it off as soon as possible. Pay off any credit cards you may have. Have a well-rounded investment portfolio that includes growth funds, a few small cap funds, some tech funds, a fund for international equities, and, as you become older, switch to bond funds for a reliable income. Diversify, diversify, and diversify again, of course. Putting all of your eggs in one basket is a bad idea. Despite not being exact, I'm confident you can recognize this sales presentation as financial advice. Donald Trump and I are not advocating for everyone to quit doing this and change. It is sound advice for those who are passive investors or have a mentality of saving money. To the financially unsophisticated, it may seem like a safe and intelligent choice to take the advice of a financial advisor. However, in today's environment, I believe it to be the riskiest of all financial advice. The difference between a saver and an investor lies in the use of leverage, the ability to do more with less. Savers typically do not use financial leverage and should not do so without the proper financial education or training. For those in the E and S quadrant, taking this advice could have different implications than for those in the B and I quadrant. Therefore, it is important to understand the implications of this advice before taking it. An example of financial leverage is using debt or borrowed capital to invest in an asset or business. This allows an investor to acquire a larger asset or business than they would be able to purchase with their own money, as the borrowed capital can be used to increase their buying power. For example, if an investor has $10,000 of their own capital, they may be able to purchase a property worth $50,000 with a loan of $40,000. This is an example of using financial leverage to increase their buying power. Work hard. Let's start with the advice: work hard. When most people think about the words work hard, they think only about themselves working hard. There is very little leverage in you working hard. When Donald and I think about working hard, while we both work hard individually, we mostly think about other people working hard for us to help make us rich. That's leverage. It's sometimes known as other people's time. As already discussed, the B quadrant person receives more tax breaks than the E and S quadrants because the B quadrant person creates jobs. In other words, our government wants us to create jobs, not look for a job. Our economy would collapse if everyone started looking for a job. For our economy to grow, we need people to create jobs. Save money. While saving is often seen as a wise and responsible financial strategy, it is important to remember that the current economic system needs debtors, not savers, to grow. As Rich Dad Poor Dad explains with the following diagram, it is advantageous to leverage debt in order to increase one's buying power and create wealth. Take a moment to study this diagram. Your savings are a liability to the bank even though those same savings are an asset to you. On the other hand, your debt is an asset to the bank, but it is your liability. By leveraging debt, an individual can acquire larger assets than they would be able to purchase with their own money, thus increasing their buying power and creating wealth. However, it is important to remember that debt comes with risks and should be used with caution. For our current economic system to keep growing, it needs smart borrowers, people who can borrow money and get richer, not people who borrow money and get poorer. Once again, the 90/10 rule of money applies. 10% of the borrowers in the world use debt to get richer, 90% use debt to get poorer. Donald Trump and I understand that taking on debt can be beneficial, but it must be done responsibly. Our bankers are in favor of us borrowing money from them, as this increases their wealth. This concept is known as OPM, or other people's money. To ensure that debt is used in a smart way, we recommend getting educated on the use of debt, as it can be used to leverage your finances and create growth. Taking on debt is a smart move, as it can help you gain an advantage over those who just save. However, it is important to remember that debt can be risky and should be used with caution. Therefore, it is essential to weigh the pros and cons of taking on debt before making any decisions. Get out of debt. Most savers believe that debt is a bad thing and that paying off their mortgage is the smartest move. And for many people, this is true. Paying off debt can be a wise choice. However, if you invest in learning about the use of debt, you can gain an advantage by using it as leverage. But before you use debt, it is important to make sure that you have the necessary financial education to understand when to use debt and when not to. Donald Trump and I are proponents of real estate investing, as it is often easier to secure loans from lenders to buy good real estate that is managed properly. However, it is important to remember that there is both good and bad real estate, and it is important to be aware of the risks associated with each. Savers who invest in mutual funds find it difficult to use leverage due to the perceived risk that bankers associate with this type of investment. Banks often see real estate as a safer option than mutual funds, which can leave savers behind financially in the current economic climate. This has been the case since the early 1970s when savers were at a disadvantage. In this kind of situation, debtors usually have an advantage over savers, but caution must be exercised when taking on debt of any kind. Invest for the long term. Many people invest in mutual funds for the long term. However, they do not offer the same level of leverage as other investments. Banks are usually hesitant to lend money for investing in mutual funds as they are seen as too risky. Additionally, investors have less control over the investments when compared to hedge funds, which often use borrowed money to increase returns on investment. Though mutual funds can be beneficial, they should not be relied upon for consistent returns. Mutual funds are like fast food. It's okay occasionally, but you do not want to make a habit of it. Diversify, diversify, diversify. Warren Buffett, reportedly the world's richest investor, has this to say about diversification. Diversification is protection against ignorance. It makes very little sense if you know what you are doing. So the question is, whose ignorance are you protecting yourself from? Your ignorance or your financial advisor's ignorance? Again, there are multiple meanings for the word diversify. Generally, it means not putting all of your eggs in one basket, which is what Warren Buffett does. To this, I once heard him say, keep all your eggs in one basket, but watch the basket closely. Personally, I do not diversify, at least not in the way the financial planners recommend. I do not buy a lot of different assets. I would rather focus. In fact, the way I get ahead is by focusing, not diversifying. One of the better definitions I have heard for the word focus is using the word as an acronym. F equals follow. O equals 1. C equals course. U equals until. S equals successful. After years of investing in real estate, I achieved success and continue to focus my investments in this area. I have also had successes in bonds, but ultimately decided to focus on real estate. I have taken 2 companies from startups to IPOs and made millions in the process, but decided that I no longer wanted to go through that process. For me, diversification is a defensive strategy, and I don't see the benefit of investing in multiple areas offensively. However, I understand the importance of diversification for most people, as it helps to protect them from their own missteps and those of their advisors. This classic financial strategy of putting in effort, paying off debt, spreading investments over time, and diversifying is suitable for passive investors who prefer to have their money managed by someone else. It's also ideal for wealthy individuals who don't have an interest in learning investment skills. This includes celebrities, wealthy professionals, athletes, and individuals with inheritances. The key is to find a competent financial advisor. Keep in mind, though, that this approach lacks leverage, which is crucial for building substantial wealth. Leverage is the key. Humans have been seeking leverage since they lived in caves, and two of the earliest forms of leverage were fire and the spear. Fire and the spear provided humans with an advantage over their challenging surroundings. Parents would teach their children how to make fire and use the spear for protection and hunting once they were old enough. Later, the spear was shortened and the bow and arrow evolved as a more advanced form of leverage. Leverage is defined as the ability to accomplish more with less, and the bow and arrow is a prime example of doing more with less compared to a spear. Throughout history, humans have continued to use their intellect to create more leverage. Riding horses was a significant form of leverage. Horses were used for transportation, plowing fields for agriculture, and as a formidable weapon in battle. The introduction of gunpowder marked a turning point, as those who possessed cannons dominated those who didn't. As a result, many indigenous cultures, including American Indians, Hawaiians, Maoris in New Zealand, Aborigines in Australia, and others, were conquered by those armed with gunpowder. Getting back to the difference between a saver and an investor, there is one word that separates them, and that word is leverage. One definition of leverage is the ability to do more with less. Robert Kiyosaki. Only 100 years ago, the automobile and the airplane replaced the horse. Again, both new forms of leverage were used for peacetime purposes and for warfare. Today, the countries that control the world's supplies of oil have leverage over much of the world. Radio, television, telephone, this computer I am writing on, and the World Wide Web are all forms of leverage. Each new breakthrough adds more wealth and power to those who have the access and the training to use these leverage tools. If you want to become rich and not be a victim of global changes, it is important that you develop the greatest lever of all, your mind. If you want to be rich and keep your wealth, your mind, your financial education, is your greatest lever of all. Donald and I both had the advantage of having rich dads who introduced us to the world of money. But all our rich dads could do was introduce us. We still had to do our part. We still had to study, learn, practice, correct, and grow. Just as the father and mother in the cave taught their children to start a fire and use a spear, we had rich dads who taught us how to use money and our minds to become rich. I can hear some of you saying, but I don't have a rich dad. I wasn't born into money. I don't have a good education. This type of thinking may be the reason why your chances for attaining and, more importantly, keeping great wealth are slim. Your chances may be slim because you are using your greatest asset, your mind. Against yourself, you are using your mind to make excuses rather than to make money. Remember, your mind is your greatest lever, but all levers can work in two directions, for good or bad. Just as debt can be used to make you rich, debt can be used to make you poor. I did not have a great education, nor was I born into a rich family. The one thing I did have was a rich dad who taught me to use my mind to make money, and not to make excuses. Rich dad hated excuses. He used to say, excuses are a dime a dozen. That's why unsuccessful people have so many excuses. He would also say, if you cannot control your mind, you cannot control your life. Today, whenever I meet someone who is unhappy, unhealthy, and unwealthy, I know it is simply because he or she has lost control of his or her mind. The greatest tool given to us by God. Although Donald and I have money today, we have both experienced financial losses. If we had used our minds to blame others or to make excuses, we would both be poor today. We are all born rich. So our message to you is the same message we received from our rich dads. We are all born rich. We all have been given the most powerful lever on earth, our minds. So use your mind for leverage to make you rich rather than to make excuses. In summary, the distinction between cavemen and apes is leverage, just as the distinction between the rich, poor, and middle class is leverage. Similarly, the difference between savers and investors is leverage, as is the difference between the E and S quadrants and the B and I quadrants. An educated and diligent investor can achieve greater returns with less risk and investment by leveraging their knowledge and skills. However, this requires taking the time to educate oneself and using one's mind wisely. Donald's view. I see investors as being active savers. Investing is a way to make money, and it may not happen overnight, but saving definitely takes time to pay off. The returns are much higher if you invest your money rather than save it. Many people are intimidated by the perceived risk or effort required to understand investing. Robert Kiyosaki effectively explains various methods of managing money in his book Rich Dad Poor Dad. The book's worldwide success is due to his clear and comprehensive explanations. Investors take big steps into the bank and big steps out, while savers take big steps in and small steps out, which is a visual representation of the difference between investing and saving. The power of saved money has diminished in today's world, but investors have a visionary outlook, considering the future instead of just the present. With a clear understanding of their investments, investors are confident that the associated risks will benefit everyone, making their steps into and out of the bank less daunting. The goal is for everyone to come out as winners. I rarely have to convince others of the worth of my ideas, as I only engage with those who are open to the proposed benefits. I inform them, rather than trying to convince them, that my proposal will be beneficial for all parties involved. I ensure that the fundamental aspects of the deal are secure before moving forward. From the beginning of my journey, I had a clear vision of success that gave me a confident and determined approach. Money must be nurtured and developed for it to be effective. Just like a talent, if it's kept to oneself, it goes to waste. Proper use, effort, and patience are crucial for success. Unrealized potential is common, be it with people who never reach their full potential or great ideas that never see the light of day due to lack of consideration. Taking on investing entails a continual obligation. On the other hand, saving does not. Not everyone is suited for investing, but just like any other skill, once you give it a chance and educate yourself about the outcomes, it can be surprisingly exhilarating. The response, "Investing is exciting," indicates to me that the person has not tried it yet. Those who know me well know that I enjoy new experiences, but when it comes to finance, I am not a risk taker. It's better if you're not either. However, shunning opportunities that could positively impact your life is not the wise choice. We have previously discussed how to overcome fear. Investing requires a sense of responsibility and requires ongoing attention, whereas saving does not. While investing may not be for everyone, it can be thrilling once you try it and understand the potential outcomes. The key difference between an investor and a saver is that investors have overcome their fears, whereas savers are still impacted by fear. To become an investor, it's important to confront and overcome any fears holding you back. When I was starting my career in real estate, I saw the financial crisis in Manhattan as an opportunity rather than a hindrance. Despite the fear and uncertainty surrounding the market, I was confident in the city's potential and saw it as a key player on the world stage. So this particular fear really served to fuel my ambition and courage, not undermine it. That is the time I started to think about an enormous piece of property along the Hudson River, 100 acres of riverfront property that was undeveloped. A financial crisis didn't interfere with my dreams and didn't shelve my ideas for a better time or a less rainy day. I was determined to be a real estate developer no matter what the climate was. The point is, I invested time and developed my ideas despite the situation. I didn't table my plan or wait until conditions were perfect. Investors are visionaries in some respects. They look beyond the present. Donald Trump. Savers wait for a long time, which often means they will miss out on opportunities. You may not have the money at the moment, and conditions may not be ideal, but that doesn't mean your mind can't be working on your ideas and paving the way to a better future. Things are rarely perfect, and having an active investor mind will keep you prepared and ready for the opportunities that will surface. Give investing a chance in the most comprehensive way you can. Look for opportunities in every climate. That's leverage. Review. Review how you benefit from leverage in your life today. Other people's time being used for your benefit. Other people's money being used for your benefit. How might you increase the use of leverage in your life? How do you see others using leverage in their lives? Could you see yourself doing what they do? See you in next video.